Welcome to another episode of Moonshots. As you know, every week we bring in amazing people who have audacious goals and they share with you not only their moonshot, but how to go on achieving, how they achieve their moonshot and what you can learn from them to achieve your own moonshot. This week, I have a special friend. I have worked with him for give or take about 20 years now. So there aren't very many people I would say that I have learned a lot from. Ed Petersen is probably one of them. So Ed, what is your moonshot? What will you like to be known for?
Well, I think we'd like to be known for building a really sustainable, amazing company that has helped a variety of different people across the planet. And that means helping people with certain problems, helping certain people with jobs, helping really reinventing the way people look and solve certain problems.
That's amazing. I mean, you know, you and I worked together for 20 years and we really took some of the toughest challenges and, you know, we've seen the ups and downs of life. And to me, that's what makes a great entrepreneur. It's always people think it's a straight up journey. And we all know it's a 2-step forward, 1 step back, 1 step forward, 2 step back. I mean, that's really what the life of an entrepreneur is. And, you know, you and I have just gone through so much together. And I would love to, you know, just go back and look at how we started together, and I would like to ask you, what are you doing now?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, you know, and it's such an interesting comment. I always describe the world of an entrepreneur. Yeah. You have to be very comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the hardest things to adjust to, because you're right. No company or grand idea is just a straight line.
Yeah.
It's a roller coaster ride of ups and downs and 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, and just continually trying and really believing in yourself and believing that you can do something really amazing. I mean, you and I have lived this together for many, many moons and always have enjoyed that process, I think, and really the problem-solving element of that process. You know, I took a lot of the learnings that we've had together, and it's really influenced, you know, kind of our approach to how we have built Wrench, which is what we're doing now, which is the company.
So what were the learnings? Now. Let's just start with the learnings, then I'm going to ask you about what Wrench does just in a minute.
Yeah, you know, so I'll tell you what a lot of the learnings are. One is don't be afraid to ask every single question.
Yeah.
And I really think that's one of the most critical things is you can never stop learning. And having that drive as an entrepreneur is really important, because oftentimes when you're reinventing how someone looks at something or how someone approaches a problem, you have immediate barriers for people who have been solving that problem a certain way for a long period of time. And so their immediate, you know, response is that will never work. You won't do it. I will give you a laundry list of reasons why your approach won't work. We do it this way.
They are an expert after all.
They're an expert. I live in this industry. And, you know, and Wrench is so funny because I always tell people that, you know, while I run a car company, a maintenance and repair vehicle company, you do not want me coming over to your car and putting new brakes on it or doing a tune-up. I have no idea how to fix a car. And so, but I think that's been an advantage to us, you know, is that, you know, it's one of those things where people push back and say, don't do this. And when you're not afraid to ask every last little question, and we did this, you know, Intellius was the poster child of that, right? When starting Intellius, you know, we had this, you know, pushback from people, as you remember, saying, it will never work, you can't do this for all these reasons. And we just kept asking why? And we pushed back on that, and it worked well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, as you know, we have always talked about it. The being a non-expert is just a great problem. You know, to some extent, that's how you disrupt an industry. Expert can make something better 10% or 15%, but they can never disrupt an industry by 10 times or 100 times, because that's where the non-expert, it's not about thinking outside the box, it's really thinking in a completely different box altogether, right? And that's where the disruption happens. And so I would like to now know about the company that you're building and what's the disruption you brought into the marketplace.
Yeah. Wow. You know, and it's a fun company. And if you would have asked me 10 years ago, when we were having a cup of coffee wherever, you know, would you be in the mobile mechanic space, which is really kind of what we're in, right? Even though we have a very strong technology, you know, approach to solving this problem, I would have kind of probably laughed at you and said, oh yeah, it's hilarious. There's no chance. But we looked at these industries and we kind of stepped back and said, we want to do something big. And if you think about the most expensive thing most people own, if they own it, is a house.
Yes.
But the second most expensive thing most
Is a
people
car.
own is their car.
Yep.
And there's all these great things that are going on the technology side of the automobile industry, from electric vehicles to autonomous driving to safety things and all this stuff. But how you deal with your car really has not changed. In fact, when we present the company from kind of an investor perspective at times, I often throw up these two pictures, and it just sort of makes me laugh. And it's a question like, hey, which one of this picture of a service shop is today, and which one is from the 40s?
Yeah.
And there's really only one way to tell the difference, and it's the one from the 40s has a phone booth out front, right? But aside from that, there's almost literally no difference. And so we looked at this and said, is there a better way to solve maintenance and repair? More cars are being sold than ever. They're being driven more. They're being made better. And so they last longer. And so when they last longer, you need more maintenance and repair. You need more upkeep. You need to, because they're just on the road longer. And so we looked at it and said, well, geez, what are the other indicators of this? Well, it's really hard to have a shop or a dealer anywhere near population bases. And so we started looking at it with this new kind of, I call it the culture of convenience. There is this culture of convenience, whether it's, I want to hit a button and have my groceries show up, my movie, my car, whatever, my Uber or whatever. There's this culture of convenience and it is out there. And we wanted to take that and bring that to this huge industry, $100 billion plus industry of maintenance and repair.
So it's Uber of car maintenance.
We say that, but it's on demand, but on demand with a schedule. So you can say, hey, I have this with my car, that I need new brakes on my car, or I need a new fuel pump on my car. I just need my 50,000 mile preventative maintenance tune-up on my car. I would like you to be here at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. And we'll be there at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. And so,
is it expensive?
We don't know. It is cheaper than going to a dealer. We really focus on convenience.
How
though.
can that be when you have somebody coming to your house, driving to your house? How can it be cheaper?
Well, you'd be surprised at how much markup there is at the dealer. Okay. Maybe you wouldn't be surprised. But, we really don't always sell on price. I mean, it is if you really are like, hey, I want to go shop around and find the cheapest,
I'm sure you'll find cheaper.
You can.
Of course.
Yeah. But it's very price competitive.
Okay.
But they are ASE, what are called ASE, Automotive Service Excellence, certified mechanics. Yeah. We employ them, so we stand behind the work. This is not a contractor where we're finding someone and just connecting you with someone. And
so these people
luck.
work for you. So these are the mechanics which are certified mechanic, and they're certified by the whatever the car companies, the manufacturer, and they work for you similar to the people who work for the dealer.
Correct, and that's where you get that quality assurance, right? So we really, if you look at it, we want brand consistency, so that if Wrench comes to your home or your work and we fix your car in Seattle, it's the same experience as if we do it in Miami. We want trust, and then we want quality. And that quality, a big part of that quality is employing the mechanics and making sure we stand behind it and really making sure that our customers know that.
So how does it work? Like you have an app and then you tell what's wrong with my car, or you say, hey, I don't know, my car is making funny noises. And what do you...
Yeah, it's a fun discussion too, because most people, and you'll laugh when I say this, but it's really true. Most people don't know what kind of car they drive.
Oh, come on.
No, think about this. So most people say, all right, I drive an Audi. Okay, an Audi Q5. Okay. Yeah. What engine's in it?
Oh, I see. Okay.
I don't know. Yeah. They don't know. And when you're fixing the car, the engine is really important. That's it. And so if you start with that premise, we've built a whole process around really identifying, all right, let's identify what the car is. But the true, really...
Couldn't you just look at the VIN number and tell you what the car is?
Well, so you'd think it'd be that easy. But explain to my mom or, my wife, oh, go grab the VIN.
Isn't like on the top of the thing?
They are. And so you can certainly enter the VIN, but we even make it easier. Just give us your license plate.
Aha.
We'll reverse out the license plate. We'll grab the VIN. And from the VIN, we go out and we figure out exactly what all the trim is on the car.
Really?
Yeah.
You can get from the license plate?
We can. We have a technology process in the back end that does all that, through data. And we figure out exactly what the car is.
Is that data available that you can look at the license plate and tells you what car it is?
It is, yeah. You have to match a few things together. I'll tell you where the cool part is, is diagnosing the car.
So you tell me, like you look in license plate and you say, that's Laura's car?
No, not the individual who owns it, but actually what the make model is, so I can figure out how to diagnose it.
Okay.
There's only two ways to truly diagnose a car.
Yeah.
And one is to connect into what's called the onboard diagnostic system through an OBD2, what's called an OBD2 port. And then the other is to really kind of have a decision tree. That decision tree right now, when you go into the dealer, when you go into the shop on the corner, is really all the same. Someone comes out, they wander around the car, they ask you a few questions, they go back through a very manual process, try and do a diagnosis on the car, and then manually build a quote for you. What we're doing is we've automated that process. So imagine just being able to diagnose your car without anyone ever looking at it. So the only time that you interact with someone is when we show up to install.
So how do you do that?
So you either tie into the car.
How do you tie into the remotely?
Through an OBD2 connection, if you can do that.
I know I'm at home. I don't have any OBD2.
So that's right. Yeah, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
So how would you do that?
Yeah, so the other way, and this is the most complex way, which is really where you use a lot of conversational AI.
Okay.
And we have built a really complex decision tree.
Okay.
Because if you think about it, all right, you just use the example of, hey, my car is making this sound.
Yeah.
Well, the sound could be the same, but what you hear and how you describe it would be totally different than how I describe it. So we have a conversational AI engine that actually steps you through this process. And based on your answers, we gain a statistical probability to start narrowing down and asking a few other questions to get down to what is actually wrong with the car.
Got it.
Once we've identified that, now you get into the whole logistics problem of how do you solve it?
Sure.
Well, what's required? How long does it take? What are all the parts? How do you mark out? Where's the location of the parts? What's the lead time? It really is actually a fascinating problem from the technology side. And I think that's really when you start saying, hey, why is this a moonshot? Why is this big? Well, if you think about vehicles, really fixing a vehicle in Seattle is the same as if you're doing it in Europe or you're doing it in South America or you're doing it anywhere. You can build this engine and it will scale anywhere. And so you can truly build a global brand.
It's interesting, looking at this car industry and you look at the future. In the future, won't you think that a lot of this AI will be built into the car, that it will tell and say, hey, Ed, I'm just having trouble with my engine and I think I may have just busted this valve. You may want to have someone repair it.
Yeah, and I think that's right. And I think eventually you start to get to that point. And that's why one of the ways we've designed the system is to be able to integrate into any diagnostic system within a vehicle. I think eventually you do get there where you have a Bluetooth connection even. You don't even have to have a port that is actually plugged into the car that just ties back in there.
And now I'm going to just continue pushing in that direction. So now if you start to think about the self-driving cars, right? Yeah. Chances of the ownership of the car just goes away. So everything is literally the car you need, depending on if you're going out on a date, you may get a Ferrari and you're going out with the buddies and you're going on hiking and you may get, but whatever car you need, it comes to you.
Yeah.
And the car knows itself and when it's wrong, it drives itself to mechanic and it gets the thing fixed. What happens to wrench then?
Yeah, I think it's, so there's two answers there. One is that it's a little bit of a misnomer that car buying is going down. The biggest group that buys cars right now is millennials and Gen Zs.
I do not believe that.
They do.
Look, I got 3 kids here. Yeah. None of them, they live in New York. None of them own a car.
Well, they live in Manhattan. And actually, surprisingly, Manhattan.
And by San Francisco, they were living in San Francisco. No one owned a car.
Across the U.S., that is your biggest group of car buyers. It is. Now, I will also tell you that one of the spots that we do really well with is fleets. And so if you think about it, we have a huge fleet business. We have a growing fleet business. And it's one of those things where you go in and if you think about a fleet, what you just talked about, if you're running the fleet, you're running a fleet of SUVs that you want to have out to people, what you're most concerned about is utilization rate.
Yeah.
You want that vehicle on the road. It's sort of like an airliner. You want it in the air. You want the car out on the road if you own a fleet. Well, what we do is we reduce downtime.
How?
If you think about what happens with the car, even in the scenario, let's just say that autonomous vehicles are all approved and the cars are just driving themselves all over the place.
Yeah.
Well, they're still out of the shop and they go to a shop to get serviced and that shop has a queue and they just sit there.
I see.
And the average time a vehicle is in a shop is well over a day. Our average job is 2 hours. So we go in off hours and actually eliminate downtime for fleets.
So why wouldn't these people, the fleet people, just hire the mechanic themselves for the off hours and have them repair it?
It's the same reason why you don't hire things that aren't your core competence, right? It's not their core competency.
Okay.
And you would be surprised how big, fleets are that do not, thousands and thousands of vehicles, and they do not want to own their own mechanics and be in that business. It's not their core business.
Very interesting, very interesting. Yeah. So that's amazing, right? So if you were to go back, and now I'm going to take you back, you have been a serial entrepreneur. You started the company way back in 90s, right? And you sold that company, and then we started another company together. We stuck in a long time. Yeah. As an entrepreneur who is just a seasoned entrepreneur, and a lot of people listening to this and say, here are the two entrepreneurs talking about these great businesses. But what would I do? So what's your advice to the people who are just coming out, wanting to be an entrepreneur? What do you tell them?
Yeah, boy, I think that there's two things. One, you have to be persistent.
Yeah.
And two, you have to be all in. I always pause when I hear people that say, we have this idea, and if we get a little bit of traction, then we're going to go.
Yeah.
I don't know any good idea that starts that way.
Yeah.
I think you have an idea, and you get a little bit of traction, but then it comes back to that learning. You have to be able to understand that you are going to hit a lot of roadblocks, and you have to learn, and you have to stay after it. And you have to, because to your earlier point, there's no truer point in entrepreneurialism than what you said, which is it is not a straight line.
Yep.
And you have to be persistent, and you can't give up. And you just go.
And you have to be all in, because otherwise the first hurdle that comes your way is thinking, I'm done, I'm going back to my job.
Totally, right? Yeah. You want to know, like, hey, look, we're all suiting up, and we've got all the parachutes on, and when the plane's in the air, we're all getting out. It's going to be great, right? And, if you're not in, I don't know how you're going to. I think your chances of success are very low.
So do you really believe the entrepreneurs are really the risk takers? Because I have always believed that entrepreneurs are actually de-riskers. They hate risk. They want to de-risk everything.
I think that's a funny comment, and I think it's probably accurate when you look at it that way, right? Because what they're trying to figure out is this is a risky problem, but what I'm consistently measuring myself on is exactly how do I put structure, or how do I put things that actually start to reduce the risk of failure?
Yeah.
And no, you're right. It's a great comment.
Right. So as an entrepreneur, what are other lessons you have learned that you would like to share with these people who are listening to this?
Yeah, I think that you go back to the learning side. I think that one of the things that is the most important thing, and I really learned this out of our last company, right? Which is data drives everything.
Yeah.
Data drives everything, and you really, because it's the old, I think it was the Bill Gates line that was like, when was the last time a spreadsheet ever lied to you?
Yeah.
And I'm paraphrasing it, but it's very true. If you understand your data and you put objectives on how you're going to judge yourself against those objectives, I think it makes your journey easier, quite frankly. I think one of the problems that a lot of people fall into is they fall in love with their own idea and fall in love with the approach to that idea.
Yeah.
And so then they convince themselves that they're almost there. They're almost there without stepping back and saying, let's just let the data talk, and then we'll adjust accordingly.
Well, you're absolutely right. The data is the new fuel. That is what it is, right? Without the data, you will never be able to actually truly be impartial to what is going on. And we used to call that intuition. And when it's not working, guess what? The data tells you that.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Other thing that, we always have done together, built an amazing team, right? So to me, the second part of really being a great entrepreneur is to know your own weaknesses so you can build around you.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think, we were blessed, at our last company with just an amazing team that was smart, worked really hard, but, equally as important, really all got along really well.
Yeah.
And you can't trivialize that because I always tell people this at Wrench. You spend the majority of your awake hours at Wrench, and so
if not all of
and so let's make sure we all get along and we're having fun and we're enjoying it. And I think that's really true. I think the other thing is you've got to understand how people scale. And and how do you put people in spots where they can win at the stage that is appropriate for where the company is at that point in time. And, and I think, quite frankly, I think that's one of the things you've done really, really well with, having worked for you. And is like, hey, let's put this person and recognizing the talents that are going to make them successful within the overall puzzle that we have and that we're trying to solve, or the problem we're trying to solve.
Well, obviously the great team is absolutely the key to for any successful company here. But other thing is, when you're looking for a friend, you want someone who is just like you. But when you're trying to create a company, you want people who are very unlike you. You may not quite have the same, they may not share your vision, but they are the ones who just keep building the road behind you.
No, that's true, right? I mean, it's funny. You have to find people that actually are there to solve the specific problem you need, right? And it's not easy. I mean, hiring is really hard. It really is hard. And, when you're smaller, the risk of making a wrong hire, and I don't want to say a bad hire because it implies that the person is bad, but a wrong hire. I brought a great person in, they just weren't the right fit for what I needed. It's just a much bigger risk, and the ramifications of that are really huge. And so it's something that you've got to be very thoughtful about, I think.
So how do you do that?
Boy, it's hard. And, I would tell you that I don't think anyone's perfect at it. I certainly know we have not been perfect at it. We've been pretty good. We've learned a lot of just making sure that we put people through, and it's interesting because I always tell people I don't believe that you need to put someone through the 3 days of interviews, with in the back room with the single light bulb hanging down, and we're just it's a battle of attrition, if you will. But we do run through a whole, process of, we want different perspectives. Like if we're hiring for someone in engineering, we don't just have them speak to engineers. If we're hiring from someone on the business side, we don't just have them speak to business people. I really want a diverse perspective on it.
That's a great advice.
Yeah, and I think the other thing we do is we make sure that we have women on our executive team, and we make sure that women actually are involved in the interview process, because they. Not only do they ask different questions oftentimes than men ask, but they hear different answers, if you will.
Sure.
And so being able to kind of bring in these diverse opinions, I think, is really important to us. Now, we try to get through our interview processes usually in a day. Sometimes we've had people come back for a couple of things.
It's a pretty grueling process.
Yeah, it's not, but it's not an all-day thing, as they say, where we're just grinding you down. But I mean, it's, we try to go through it in a pretty efficient way. I always feel like it's, you're asking the same person the same question by 3 different people is just sort of, it kind of works, but it's just not been our approach. But I mean, it's hard. It's hard. We've been very lucky.
So what happens when you end up hiring someone who's just a great person for someone else, just not for you?
You've got to make that decision. It's the hardest part of being a CEO.
So what do you do there?
You have to have the hard discussions, and I know you've had those, I've had those, and it really is. It's this one of the unfun components of this job, right? Where you do have to sit down and have those chats of this is here were our expectations. I always find and it's I don't want to say it's easier the more senior the person is, but if you are setting expectations correctly from the beginning, I think those discussions are easier.
Well, let me ask you one more question, then we can wrap it up. Is another part of being an entrepreneur is getting the funding, and you are. Obviously you have gone through a couple of rounds. So what is your advice to the entrepreneurs who are now just getting started, got the things going, got a prototype, now they need the money to scale?
Well, I've learned from the best over here. So I will tell you that vision and getting someone excited about your vision, and there's sort of these 2 phases to raising, right? Are you in the story phase or are you in sort of coin operated phase? Like we figured out a lot of stuff and now we just need some fuel. In the story phase, it's about a vision and explaining to someone why this is so cool, but it's also tying that back with specific metrics that you can say, hey, and we're going to do A, B, C, and D, and this is how we're going to judge this company. And it may not necessarily be revenue. It may be, usage. It may, there's a variety of things that are tied into, either whether it's unit economics or however you're judging that vision's success. You really need to have a good handle on those numbers. And I think that's kind of the most important thing that buttresses the vision side.
Any other advice in terms of raising money for the people?
Yeah, I think it's hard.
We all know that.
And why I say that is don't give up, right? I mean, it really is hard. Yeah. And I mean, you know this, I know this. We have been blessed with very good funding partners with Madrona here locally in Seattle and Tenaya Capital and Vulcan Capital here in Seattle and we've been blessed with really good strong backing. But yeah, no, it's hard. I mean, it is. It's I always remind people, remember that the venture people that invest, it's not their personal money, right? They are a steward of someone else's money, and they view it as a business, and they have very specific things they're looking for, and they have very specific things they're going after, and so it is hard, but it's if you're organized and you have a lot of passion for that business, someone will see that passion, and they will follow it.
I mean, almost every successful company has probably gone through hundreds of no's. Pick a name, Starbucks, or pick any other name. They all hear no. But it takes one person to say yes, and then rest is history.
Salesforce is the as obviously, which was unbelievably successful, is always sort of the poster child of that, with the stories that have of how many times they pitched and were told no, and and look at them now, and it does happen. You have more no's than yeses.
Well, so Ed, as you know, I've been looking forward to this discussion. It's been so long. It's a great excuse for us to come together. Where can people find Wrench, and where can people find you?
Oh, yeah. Wrench.com. It's that easy.
It's easy.
Yeah, we're very simple. Yeah, wrench.com. Would love to, we're always looking for new customers.
Yeah. And where can people find you?
Yeah, just, email me. I'm on Wrench's site, or, epetersen@wrench.com. It's very straightforward. I'm an easy guy to get a hold of, and I like to feel like I'm responsive, and but we'd appreciate your trust in us, and we would love to service your car and get your feedback on our site and our solution that we're bringing to market.
Well, guys, you heard it. A great serial entrepreneur, a great friend, someone you can absolutely trust. So if you have any issue, I would say please just check out wrench.com, download the app, and if you ever need your car fixed, here's the man, right? He may not know how to fix the car, but he built a great company that has great mechanics, right? So Ed, it's been an honor and a pleasure to spend time with you.
It's always good to see you, my friend. Thank you. I appreciate it.